Hello, this is Joy News Desk with me, Mamisi Nyamiche Thompson. Coming up, who guards the vote? Chaos at Ablekuma North raises security alarms for Akwitia poll. We have a one-on-one with the Africa Union High Representative for Silence the Guns, Muhammadu Ibn Chambas. Also coming up, former President John Kufuor worried about his exclusion from decision-making processes in the new patriotic party. Also, ECOWAS Commission leads tribute at Nigeria's former President Muhammadu Buhari passes at 82. We have details, plus get the latest in Nigeria. And we'll get you the latest on the regions of the National Science and Maths quiz. These plus some business updates on our desk. Do stay for details. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In our first story, Ghana's electoral reputation as a stable democracy is increasingly being tested by an old but dangerous menace, political vigilantism. From Techiman South to Ayaso West Wogon, and now most recently the Ablekuma North, scenes of chaos, intimidation and outright violence continue to stain the ballot box. Last Friday's brutal assault involving former appointees, opposition figures and journalists has reignited fears ahead of the upcoming Akwitia by-election. As political thugs fill the void left by an unresourced or passive police presence, the present question echoes louder than ever. In Ghanaian elections, who should be in charge of security, the police or vigilantes? Well, we'll return with that conversation, but first here's a report.
The rerun of parliamentary elections in the orphan Ablekuma North constituency was anything but calm. What was expected to be a peaceful electoral process quickly descended into chaos. Violence marred the exercise from the onset. Former Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture, Kumsin, was assaulted by thugs at the Methodist Church, Odoko 1 polling center.
Yes. Now, how Kumsin is on the floor? That is what is happening here right now. That is what you can see inside. You can get a closer look. The doors are locked, but that is what you can see here.
Shortly after, Deputy Organizer of the MPP, Chris Asamoah, was also physically assaulted. Journalists were not spared. A Joy News reporter was assaulted in line of duty. A reporter from GH1 TV was also attacked, while another from ATV was left gasping for air after pepper spray filled the polling area. The Ghana Journalists Association has since condemned the attacks on media personnel.
But we demand an immediate, thorough, and transparent criminal investigation into this matter. Since it's a case of assault. Assault is a second-degree felony. We call Inspector General of Police, IGP, Christian Tetenyolu, to act and ensure that swift and decisive disciplinary action is taken to serve as deterrent to others.
Police say investigations are underway. Beyond the violence, accusations of vote buying also surfaced. Both the MPP and NDC traded blame, accusing each other of inducing voters.
Brana Champo donated 200,000, Baumia donated 400,000. Now they are donating presidential camps. So I won't be surprised they are sharing. But as for us, we are stabilizing the economy. We don't have money to share. We have goodwill messages to give. They say they are not participating in the election. They told all of us. So I don't see why they are here. Where are their principles?
You saw the reports going around yesterday about the Jubilee House bringing 10 million into their constituency for just 19 police stations, 10 million. This morning, there's a video on one of your sister stations where the gentleman was asked after he finished voting what happened. And then he said he's received 100 cedis from the NDC candidate to come and vote. He's on record. In fact, I'm actually pushing that video to the OSP because he's the one that's arresting people for vote buying. Ask him. The gentleman said he received Momo, and this can be verified.
The Ghana Integrity Initiative raised concerns that such practices continue to undermine public trust in Ghana's electoral process.
So if people would use inducements to continue to lure voters, I think that this is something the parties themselves should condemn. And history has even taught us that the electorates are even becoming wiser. You know, if you look at what happened in Asimfosu, where a lot of money was displaced, voters were still able to defend and voted with their conscience and not the inducement.
Despite the tension, the Electoral Commission insists the rerun was necessary to uphold electoral integrity. But for residents of Ablekuma North, the day left more questions than answers about the state of democracy.
Well, the Eswell NPP government birthed the Vigilantism and Related Offences Act 2019 to outlaw vigilante activities, specifically Section 7(8) and Section 8. Let me go to the screen now and then get details of that, law that outlaws vigilantism. And it says involvement in vigilantism directly or indirectly, including by aiding or funding, attracts conviction to a term of imprisonment of not less than 10 years. 10 years and not more than 25 years. Now, on that same bill, it says that prohibition, or Section 8 of that law says prohibition of a convicted person from contesting public elections or holding public or political party office. One, a person convicted on an offense under this act is disqualified from A, contesting an election from a public office, or B, holding any public or political party office until at least 10 years have elapsed from the date of the conviction or after the end of the sentence. Meanwhile, the Coalition of Domestic Elections, have also released a statement and is asking the Ghana Police Service to move with alacrity to apprehend and prosecute all persons involved in the acts of violence. CODEO insists perpetrators must face the full force of the law to deter others from engaging in such undemocratic practices during elections and clamp down on impunity. Now, extras of that statement from the screen is that the coalition condemns the incidents of violence and intimidation against poll workers, voters, journalists, and 2 female politicians. Now, the coalition also urges the police to move with swift alacrity to apprehend and prosecute all persons involved in the acts of violence. And that's the update from CODEO telling us all that. Now, CODEO's call for police investigation is supported by Deputy Government Spokesperson Shamima Muslim. She spoke earlier on the AM show.
I don't know what was happening in the minds of the young men. I was not there. And I always say this, that sometimes until you become a victim of violence, I always used to condemn, and I still condemn, mob action. But when you hear people share their experiences of armed attacks, armed robbery, theft against them, you can only understand the extent of their pain. Until you go through a certain process, you can only encourage people to allow the rule of law to always precede, personal feelings of hurt and anger. Only the security agencies an investigation that can really bring us the full picture of what triggered the unfortunate action that we see. And sometimes I think this society does not want candor, because when you attempt to be honest to a situation, you are rather misrepresented, and the public will get to you. The vice president, you do know that the president is not in the jurisdiction, right?
Okay.
But the vice president, who is acting president, issued a statement more than we even ever had from the previous administration.
After all the processes?
Never had a comment to make about Ayawaso West.
After all the processes.
And you must put those questions to them. Because when we, as a government, take steps that are distinctively different from what we have seen in the previous administration, you recognize that as being progress.
So we're saying that after the response from your minister and after the vice president's speech, we saw the level of
even
violence
I spoke on media. I spoke on your channel because Max was.
You've condemned.
Of course.
Okay.
Those actions are condemnable.
Okay.
Well, joining me this morning to delve into this issue is the Africa Union High Representative for Silencing the Guns, Dr. Muhammadu Ibn Chambas. We're grateful for this privilege this morning, Dr. Chambas.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Good to have you. Now, I believe you have averted yourself to the events that happened last Friday, the rerun, the Ablekuma North rerun, and also issues that have erupted, the reactions, especially from government spokespersons, as well as the opposition NPP. For you, where you sit, what are your impressions of what has happened so far?
You see, where I sit, election-related violence of concern to me and my work across the continent is specifically directed at that, because a lot of the civil strife that we see and crisis in many of the African countries that are facing prolonged crisis, usually they stem from election-related violence. Not always, but most of the time. And to put in context, I was just coming from, I was actually in Abidjan on Friday the 11th on a pre-election mission with former President Jonathan of Nigeria and former President Yahya Boni in the context of West Africa Elders Forum that I'm a member of. And what is interesting is that in most of the discussions, the meetings we had with the Ivorian stakeholders, be it political parties, civil society, they were all referencing Ghana and saying directly, why can't Cote d'Ivoire be like Ghana, where you have elections without violence? So when we see this, when I come back and I'm told that the day before there was violence in Ablekuma North, I'm saying, well, this shouldn't be, because we're touted there as a model. Many want to copy us, and we need to stamp this out of our election. And it's something that, frankly, now needs to be dealt with heads on.
Well, with the events that happened on Friday, we've even heard head of vigilante groups, especially the head of the Ashanti one, making threats in the upcoming poll in Akwatia. And that's also generating fears of what's going to happen there. What would you describe as the impact or the growing influence of vigilante groups in our elections?
The level of violence, fortunately, hasn't reached that point where guns are used. We saw it in Ayawaso West, where guns were actually, used. I think in the past, in the north, there had been some incidents like that. It's a long history. But the point to make here is that it cannot continue. It should not continue. We need to deal with it decisively. And for me, let's be blunt, it is frankly an NDC, NPP affair. You don't witness this with the smaller and minor parties. So that means that we need to get dialogue between these two major parties. We need to get the National Peace Council, the NCCE, of course, capacitate them, give them the resources that they need to begin engaging the two major parties, particularly their youth wing, to engage them in training for peace, culture of peace, training when elections are coming up to ensure that they understand that elections are not about beating up opponents and harassing your opponents, but it's about mobilizing your supporters, your party faithfuls to go out and vote. That's it. And of course, monitor and stand there and be part of the process so that untoward things don't happen. But it should never descend to confrontations and attacks and assaults such as we have been witnessing. This is not the first time, but the decisive action that is required has never been followed up. You recall, even with going back, everyone keeps going back to West Welgo, and that's because a high-level panel was set up of very eminent and respected Ghanaians, and its report was jettisoned. And that leads to this tit-for-tat, which the ordinary Ghanaian is saying, when will this tit-for-tat start? Stop. And it needs at some point to stop. And in my view, let's work at engaging those who we know are those involved in it.
Doc, I mean,
youth wings of these two major parties. So let's engage them.
But Doc, I mean, coming to that particular point, the opposition NPP over the weekend were disappointed that the president didn't even make a statement on what has happened so far. I mean, we've heard from other government officials. The NPP, the NDC, you've talked about, join on the situation. But do you think they are really committed to end this? Because especially when Miracles Abuaje, spokesperson for the former vice president as well as the former flag bearer of the NPP, says that if nothing is being done to prevent these vigilante groups from going to man elections, then they'll also have to advise themselves and also come back and protect themselves, take matters into their own hands. In a situation where the police is seen as helpless, despite an election police, force, not knowing what to do in such a situation or being passive about the situation, do you really think that the government or the president is committed to outlawing really these groups from venturing into our elections?
The security forces are adequately trained. They have the competence. They have the wherewithal. And I mean, I keep saying this when I have interacted with them, usually pre-election situations, that I have seen them operate in Ghana to secure other elections. So it's not when they come home that they all of a sudden will not know what to do. But as I'm saying, we need now to engage in prevention activities, concrete activities, training of the youth, letting them to understand what they have to do. Both parties have to demonstrate the political will to allow this to happen. We have institutions set up, constitutional institutions, charged with this responsibility. The National Peace Council, the NCCE. The fact is that at this point, they don't have the resources. We need to provide them the resources to engage in this kind of training, which will instill in the youth a culture of peace. When we do that, we will see a diminution of the kind of violence that is associated with our elections, particularly the post-election period. I mean, we witnessed it again after the December elections, which were acclaimed by all to have been very peaceful and credible. But post-election, we saw it, and it's something that has been recurring. And you can identify the wings of the parties, which is not the women's wing, it's not the, it's the youth wings of our parties, principally the NDC and the MPP, which have engaged with them. Can we engage them? Can we promote, inter-party dialogue related specifically to containing youth violence at elections? And can we even go beyond? I've seen good practices. Sierra Leone, where you had party youth engage in joint sporting activities, keep fit, play matches, football matches together, clean up together, exercises, specifically mobilizing the youth to get to interact with each other and to understand that when elections are coming, it's not about violence and using sticks or cutlasses, worse yet, even guns. If we should never get to that tipping point where the violence escalates and people start using weapons, and those weapons, unfortunately, are easily available in our sub-region. Let's prevent, let's avoid getting there. And my suggestion here is let us encourage, the laws are there to be, you read them, it's very clear what they say. But the enforcement will require political will on the part of the political actors. And in this case, I'm narrowing it down to NPP and NDC. Let us get the youth wings trained in peace and a culture of peace and understanding what their role should be in elections. It's not about beating each other up, but mobilizing their supporters to come out and outvote each other. That's it.
Well, Dr. Chambas, do you believe the president should at least have made a statement about this violence?
Well, I just heard that as I told you, I'm just coming back from a trip outside, and I just heard Honorable Shamima Islam say that, and Shamima Muslim say that the president is not around, and the vice president, who is acting, has issued a statement. But at this point, it goes beyond statement. It's condemnable, and you've said it all. Ministers, everybody's condemning it. But beyond condemning it, what should we do now? For me, that's what I want to focus on, the prevention of violence. And I can assure you that once we start our own national efforts at tackling this head on, and I've already been exchanging messages with the Executive Secretary of Peace Council, with which I work quite well, and I say, look, this is something that should not be allowed to continue. But they need to be given the resources to do their work. So the NCCE. But the two parties must really engage dialogue to prevent this from recurring. It's not about state. We've gone beyond.
Should these groups even be allowed at our election centers at all? I mean, should they be allowed there? Do you see certain lapses in our security institutions such that these people are allowed to go man the election or offer some form of protection during election periods?
Well, we've seen that our elections are participative. People turn out, people come. And normally, when they are lining up, you might not even know that it could degenerate into this level of violence. So, as I said, I have no question that the security agencies have the wherewithal, they have the training, they have the experiences to be able to secure. And let's face it, these incidents of violence also are limited to a known area. So they are usually hotspots that we are able to identify way ahead of elections. So the analysis is good enough by groups such as CDD, CODEO, WANEP, IDEC, etc. So we have very good early warning analysis to tell us where problems could arise, including by security agencies. I'm aware of all of that. So the issue is now to work the work that is required. It requires, dialogue and training and engaging these youths constructively and positively to eschew violence and to understand what elections are about and what they have a role. Youth wing of a party have a role to mobilize people and get people to come out and vote and get a high turnout. There's no question about that. But the scenes that we see of, attacking former, leaders and, senior leaders of political party, ministers and all of, and others is just not tolerable. It's unacceptable, and it's a long list. And both leaders in both parties have been victims over the years. So I think the time has come now for us to engage in what do we do to contain this problem. It is a problem, and I mean. You see, because the death numbers, the death toll is usually not as high as in other cases outside Ghana, this doesn't get the international publication. But we know what is going on here, so let's prevent it because we have a very good image out there. As I told you, even next door in Cote d'Ivoire, people are already really scared. There's a fierce, there'll be large numbers of people leaving the country before October the 25th, the elections, and and they are saying, how come we can't be as peaceful with our elections as Ghana? And then we see these pictures, which are quite disturbing, as isolated as they are. Sometimes they say it just needs a little flick of fire to start a bushfire. So we should be careful to avoid allowing it to perpetuate itself and to degenerate.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, so the incident that happened on Friday, there's still not been any arrest. We understand the police is investigating. But then there's also Akwatia by-election coming up. We've seen on social media, at least videos, these groups threatening mayhem and even planning to cause harm to top leaders in that constituency. What should be done moving towards the Akwatia election? Exactly what should be done? I mean, beyond the George, or I mean, having conversations, which you've made very clear, what should be done to prevent an incident from happening at Akwatia?
Yes, the youth in Akwatia should be engaged immediately prior to that election. I mean, the youth wing of NDC, youth wing of MPP should be brought together. And they should be talked to, there should be dialogue, there should be efforts between now and then, not just campaigning. They should engage in cleanup campaigns, joint cleanup campaigns. Those things help to build confidences and camaraderie and to let them know that, look, Akwatia is coming and it will not be worth the blood of any citizen of Akwatia just because there's going to be a by-election. And as it's unfortunate the MP passed. So, I mean, a tribute should be paid to this young member of parliament, who I don't know, but I hear was a young up-and-coming politician. So, I mean, the best way to pay tribute to someone like that is to ensure that we have peaceful election. After all, in the general elections, nobody had anything from Akwatia. So why should it be now that there's going to be a by-election that people should be hurt or killed or maimed? It's uncalled for. And what I'm saying is that let's get all our civil society, but also our constitutional organs, which we have set up specifically for that purpose, National Peace Council through its regional peace council, its district peace councils should get to work, but they need to be enabled to do that. Let the parties, at the senior level, youth leaders of both two parties, let us see them come out in an act of solidarity together, making joint appeals to their respective youth wings to avoid violence, to go out and just canvass votes, but not to engage in acts of violence. These are proactive things that need to be done. Security agencies, especially the police, I know in the past they engage in that also. They call the youth, they sit down with them. I think the IG, should get his regional commander and others to organize meetings already in Akwatia ahead of the meetings. The Minister of Interior is somebody that I know, and I know is completely opposed to this type of violence. I watched his vetting, and I recall him saying there that he completely condemns any acts of violence in our elections. And he even gave his own example in his constituency, in in Kumasi, where, how he and the then vice presidential candidate made efforts to calm down their youth. And consequently, you didn't hear of any violence there. And so I think he can step up here and, work to support the security agencies to engage the youth ahead of the by-election so that Akwatia can turn out as, what was it? Was it Akin, we had a by-election in the central region, which went very well without incident prior to the general election. So it's doable. Asin North or Asin Central, one of the Asin constituencies, I remember, so it can be done. And so let's be proactive. Let's be in conflict and violence prevention mode. Let's engage in dialogue with these young people. Let's use their existing structures to do that. And then we will see a reduction of this. It's not dignifying to see our political leaders from both camps treated this way from time to time. I mean, former minister, the current minister of communication, we know what he went through, also in the past. Former chairman Blay, so there's a long list, and it's for both sides, and it's not dignifying. So, but we can do something about it. We have a good electoral system which is admired, and our results are always an example across the continent. Let's keep it that way.
Right. And let me veer off from the politics of Ablekuma North. And we didn't hear good news from Nigeria recently. We lost General Muhammadu Buhari to illness in London. I believe you've worked with him in the past years. And how do you react to the news of his death?
Yes, with sadness. I also heard it when it happened. Yesterday it happened, I'm told, around 4:30 by 5 o'clock. A friend of mine close to the Buhari family, who is with them in London, had called me, and I expressed my condolences to the family. President Buhari is someone that I knew personally. I had the honor and the privilege of working with him while I was with the UN, and he always received me very, very warmly and very kindly. He was a simple man, an epitome of humility, and really he led a very almost austere life. And I recall, for instance, when I first visited him, this was before he had won the election, but he hadn't been sworn in. And I went to Kaduna with a UN colleague of mine, Professor Batili, to visit him in his Kaduna home. And when we left, both of us were just, awe-inspired. The simplicity of the place. I'm not exaggerating if I say that house, in fact, I remember telling my friend, I said, look, this house is like a headmaster's house, in Ghana. Bare furniture, it hadn't seen paint in more than a decade at least. And he was very comfortable in his surroundings.
I see.
But what is interesting, let me tell you this, when he won, a number of contractors rushed to the house and wanted to expand it, and he chased all of them away. This was a known story in Nigeria.
That's interesting.
Exactly. He preferred to live a very simple life, eschewed ostentation, which, in these days of people flaunting wealth, and it's quite something, especially for a president of a country like Nigeria, where there's so much opulent and sometimes I should say this, very vile display of wealth. He was completely different. And when he retired and went home, again, he went to his home in Daura, to his bungalow, which he built when he was a military officer. So it's one of those doesn't have a palace in his hometown. And again, there were people rushing to come and they say, no, leave me in my, this is where I came from, this is where I want to come back to. And we all saw videos and, TV coverage of that. So that is the kind of person we have lost.
Right.
But on the fight against, I should highlight his role in the fight against terrorism, especially in the Lake Chad Basin area. That's where, Boko Haram spread its tentacles, beyond northeast Nigeria, into Niger, into Chad, into northern Cameroon. It was President Buhari, when he came into power, who gave the resources to the Multinational Joint Task Force, the MNJTF, which was the force established to fight Boko Haram. And more or less, Nigeria single-handedly funded it. He put $100 million into that force. That is what led to chasing Shekau out of Sambisa forest, where they had been engaged in all the atrocities and the violent extremist activities. And today, I think if Boko Haram is no more the force it used to be, I think President Buhari's role has to be acknowledged in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad Ibn Chambas. He's African Union High Representative for Silence the Guns, and we're very privileged to have heard him this morning comment on the issues at Ablekuma North and also the death of General Buhari. But let's take the profile of General Muhammadu Buhari.
Buhari, born on December 17, 1942 in Dora, Nigeria, died July 13, 2025 in London, England. He was a Nigerian military leader and politician who served as Nigeria's head of state in 1984 to 1985 and later as a democratically elected president in 2015 to 2023. Buhari was educated largely in Katsina. Mr. Buhari took military training in Kaduna as well as in Great Britain, India, and the United States. He was involved in the military coup that ousted Yakubu Gowon in 1975 and was appointed military governor of Northeastern State, now Borno, that same year. He was appointed Federal Commissioner for Petroleum Resources by General Olusegun Obasanjo, who became military head of state when Gowon's successor, Murtala Muhammad, was assassinated in 1976. By 1977, Buhari had become the military secretary at Supreme Military Headquarters, which was the seat of government. By September 1979, he had returned to regular army duties and commanded a division based in Kaduna. Although the civilian government had returned to Nigeria in 1979, with the election of Shehu Shagari, the satisfaction with dismal economic conditions and what the military perceived as corrupt politicians led to another military coup on December 31, 1983, and Buhari was chosen unanimously to be the new head of state.
Well, let's head to Nigeria now and speak to our partners, Channels TV, Aitope Kute, who's a worker there with him on the current situation in Nigeria. Aitope, thank you for joining us on our desk. How did Nigerians receive the death of Dr. Buhari?
Good morning, Essie, and how are you doing? How is Ghana this morning?
We're well.
Okay, so it's as usual, following the death of the immediate past president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, it's a time for sober reflection for Nigerians. Losing a man of such caliber who has been a military head of state in Nigeria, also a civilian president for 8 years. He has a towing reputation in the country. He was an elder statesman, and presently it's really a sober reflection for Nigerians having lost such an icon in the country.
Is there any update on his burial? Any news coming from family or even the country?
Yeah. As you know, he died a Muslim, and according to Islamic rites, is to be buried today. So yesterday, the president gave directive that the vice president, Kashim Shettima, and his chief of staff should go to London, where he died in an hospital, undisclosed hospital in London, to bring his corpse back to Nigeria for straight to Dara in his village in Katsina State for the burial rites today.
Right. Thank you very much, Ekute Eitope Kute. Thank you very much for joining us on our desk. Well, leading the tributes is the ECOWAS Commission, and in a statement, they have been praising the former leader, and they say it is with deep sorrow that the world learned of the passing of His Excellency General Muhammadu Buhari, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. On behalf of all the institutions of the Economic Community of West African States, His Excellency Dr. Omar Aliyu Toure, President of the ECOWAS Commission, extends his heartfelt condolences to the family. It also says to His Excellency President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and to the entire Nigerian people, ECOWAS salutes the memory of this distinguished statesman whose invaluable contributions greatly advanced democracy and regional integration in West Africa and across the African continent. May his soul rest in paradise. And that's ECOWAS's tribute to the former president of Nigeria, Buhari. Now, former President John Ajekun Kufuor has expressed disappointment over what he perceives as marginalization within the NPP. In a rare outburst during a courtesy call on him by NPP flag-bearer aspirant Brian Champon, the elderly statesman said he found it troubling that despite his decades-long service and leadership of the party, he is now excluded from key decision-making processes. Let's take a listen.
And as some fans said, my son to the point, sir, I go cry for Abianisha and no cross it, Menyan with that state. And think at least a young mammy to be. No matter about compare, some young near being of state. Niago Dronana, Namanya party me view. I think I might mature in me family. So Ghana, political party, political history. I can't say UGCC. But if you 47 and 69 was there, time nearly power for Ghana. 2 years, 3 months, was there time. Me, 69, maybe 30 years, and be a member of parliament, be a founding member of Progress Party. 2 years, 3 months, was there, I am deputy foreign minister. A champion 2 years, them sick. The team and number Asha Fort prison with them 1 year, 3 months. Something that did there cause room behind another detention. But I know I did build a year. From 72 January, I jump on 2 years side, the tradition. There are more power POR that till 2001. Me am a crane departing by power. 2 times Ghana, didn't see. And then the baby say. Ya wom ya prepare wom na bibi se be kona nyame ada o ma me cho na ya beg no me kura menti ase.
And here that the former president John Ajekun Kufuor complaining he doesn't understand why he's been sidelined in key decisions in the NPP. Well, moving on, Minister for Defense Dr. Edward Omane has called for calm and restraint in Bawku following renewed attacks in the area on Sunday. As tensions remain high in the conflict-prone town, Dr. Boama acknowledges the disturbing nature of the recent developments and assures the public that steps are being taken to address the situation. Well, on social media, and I quote, he says, "We are once again urging restraint and calm in Bawku regarding the latest developments as of yesterday." He stated, "I have directed thorough investigations into the recent matter and promised to take swift action based on recommendations. Once again, let us ensure restraint." And that's from the Defense Minister, Dr. Omane Boama. This is Joy News Desk with me, Mamisi Nyamita Thompson. We take a break, we return with business.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Member of Parliament for Ewutu Senya East, Phyllis Nanako Okono, has expressed strong support for the Ghana Investment Promotion Centre's Investment Opportunity Mapping Project, calling it a timely initiative to boost local economic development. She made the remarks at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Lifestyle Hub Beachfront Resort, a joint venture between Lifestyle Hub Group Nigeria and Tuga Group Ghana, held in her constituency.
The GIPC-led initiative seeks to identify and document investment-worthy opportunities in all metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies across the country. By empowering local government with investment data, the project aims to decentralize economic growth and ensure that every region has the tools to attract investors. The Member of Parliament praised the Lifestyle Hub Beachfront Resort as a bold example of what public-private partnerships can achieve when development is localized and inclusive.
I know that government is bringing a lot of investors into Ghana. There is into the housing industry, there is into the hospital projects, they are into factories. I know of a couple of factories that are coming in here. But one thing that we should know, that most of these factories that government is bringing here are going to be not solely foreign based, they are going to be local based, like what Dr. Sami Tuga has just done. So most of the workforce is going to be locally produced.
President and Chief Executive Officer of Tuga Group of Companies and Skybridge Group, Dr. Samuel Chumesi, describes such projects as key to transform Ghana's economy.
This Dampase Kokrobite is one of the most beautiful scenery, anything coastal. We've been studying and doing our feasibility study for a long time, and from the data and the outcome, we realized that this place would be the best place for the structure. Hence, we decided to embark on this project.
Executives from Lifestyle Hub Group and Tuga Group also affirmed their commitment to long-term investment in Ghana's tourism and hospitality sectors.
Now, startups across Ghana and Africa stand to benefit from stronger support and improved access to funding, following renewed calls for deeper collaboration between entrepreneurs, policymakers, and investors. Founder and CEO of Aya HQ, Eric Annan, stressed that startups have the potential to significantly reduce unemployment and serve as a catalyst for accelerated economic growth across the continent.
The Aya Roundtable meeting was held under the theme Unlocking Economic Opportunity Through Innovation, Bridging Startups, Policy and Capital in Ghana. Speaking at the event, founder and CEO of Aya HQ, Eric Annan, emphasized the urgent need for effective collaboration among key stakeholders to accelerate the growth of the startup sector across Africa.
It's a roundtable that we put together to engage the policy makers, the regulators, the industry, partners, the ecosystem, for us to have a conversation about the future that we want to see built for our country and our continent. And we believe that the new world that we're looking for is not going to come from the sky. We have to create it. And so it's just a conversation to showcase what Aya has piloted in the last 4 years from our own resources and from global allies like LISC, Ethereum, Coinbase, and the rest who believe that Africa Tech is now supporting. But how much more can global allies support when we have our own continent to build? So it's for us to open up the conversation, for us to dialogue, engage. Because conversation is so powerful that oftentimes we underrate the power of conversation. So it's not just about us trying to prove a point, it's for us to say this framework will work.
Also addressing the event, Emmanuel Fori, Director of Innovations at the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization, underscored the government's effort to develop a supportive policy framework that improves access to finance.
We realize that this whole ecosystem, even though it's vibrant and it's taking up, does not have any framework guidance. So the ministry is putting together a Ghana Innovation Startup Bill. Now, what this act will do is that one of the bottlenecks that prevents the youth getting into this innovation space is funding which is sustainable. We don't have it. So we get short-term funding. So this ideation and creativity starts, the funding support is limited, and then they are not able to scale. So once we have the framework will ensure that we have a fund that will support this whole ecosystem.
Aya HQ reaffirmed its commitment to empowering the next generation of African innovators through technical workshops, hackathons, and a range of builder-focused community events.
All right, and that's it for this segment. Back to you, Mamesi.
Thank you, Daryl. Now it's time for the National Science and Math Quiz. Well, the regional qualifiers is now in the Eastern region, and Adobia Sari joins me with more. Adobia, fill us in. What's happening there?
Hi, Mame. So the race to the Eastern Regional Championship of the National Science and Math Quiz is on. And 57 schools will be battling to secure spot to battle for the final, regional championship title. However, today we are seeing 20 schools battle for 4 slots, and the first contest is already underway. It's quite interesting. You have Methodist Girls, Senior High School Manfe, Akema Safo, Atefua, Boso, and St. Martin's. So the second round has ended. I mean, the third round has just ended. If I could show you, the contestants are currently waiting for the quiz mistress to announce the results. But it's going quite well. It's been quite interesting. Atefua SHTS is leading, with Methodist Girls closely following with just a few points away. So we wait to see how it's going to end.
As the schools are amassing the points, it looks like your cheeks are also amassing some plumpness over there. But thank you so much, Adobia, for that report. And that sums it up for our desk this morning. I am Amiesi Nyamiche Thompson. We'll be back at midday with more stories.